Hey guys, Thunderfoot and Ray Comfort recently had a discussion about morality. Now for those of you who don't know, Thunderfoot is a really popular atheist here on YouTube, and Ray Comfort is a really popular Christian. Now I don't agree with either one of them especially often, but I do think their discussion about morality raises some interesting questions, and I kind of wanted to use their discussion to present a new idea I've been working on. So let's start by taking a look at two popular positions in morality. One's called Deontology, and the other's called Consequentialism. Now I'll explain what those mean in a moment, but interestingly, Thunderfoot seems to find himself in one camp, and Ray Comfort seems to find himself in the other. In fact, I think we can use clips from their discussion to explain what each of these positions entail. Let's start by listening to a clip of Thunderfoot.
It comes down to who benefits, what are the costs, and what are the benefits.
This is consequentialism. As Thunderfoot explains, it pertains to costs and benefits. You can also think about it as dealing with results, outcomes, or as the name suggests, consequences. Now let's take a look at Ray Comfort talking.
Murder is wrong.
Okay, so this is deontology. When he says murder is wrong, he's referring to a principle. So deontology deals with principles or rules. So let's watch one more clip, and that's going to highlight the difference between these two positions.
So what's the ever society that instigates rape because it's a great benefit to men? It's great benefit. Then is that okay?
If it, in the hypothetical situation, you can make up things like that. In our society, it is deemed immoral.
So Ray Comfort, as a deontologist, wants to argue that rape is wrong in principle. And Thunderfoot, as a consequentialist, wants to argue that rape is only wrong because it has negative consequences. If, hypothetically speaking, rape brought about more benefit to the man than cost to the woman, then it would become good under his view. Okay, so here's one more way to tell the difference between these two views. Consequentialism deals with results, rather than how you get the results. Deontology, on the other hand, deals with how you get the results, rather than the results you actually get. To use some synonyms, deontology deals with means, and consequentialism deals with ends. Now ironically, Thunderfoot argues that we have innate knowledge, or a conscience, which means that we are hardwired with knowledge that certain things like murder are wrong. And since that's a principle, we can see that even as a consequentialist, he realizes that we have knowledge that certain means should be valued. Also ironically, Ray Comfort believes that human life is objectively valuable, since we're created in the image of God. So even as a deontologist, he recognized that certain ends should be valued. Now I think both ends and means are important, and given their beliefs, I think both of them should too. Now I think our understanding of morality should be a combination of both of those positions, and I think we can see why that's the case using a bit of math. The consequentialist typically argues that life, or well-being, usually human life, is the only thing which is objectively valuable. So those are the only consequences which matter. But we can show intuitively that this is not the only thing which should be valued. And here's where the math comes in. So let's use a moral dilemma where we can hold one variable constant. It will be, can you kill one total stranger to save another total stranger? Since this is a one-for-one scenario, we've held the consequences constant, so we can cancel out later. Since murder or refraining from murder has the same consequence, the consequentialist would deem this action to be morally neutral. But this seems to contradict our intuitions. So there must be more at play than just consequences, and that's how we can determine that the principle of not murdering must also carry some value. We may be able at this point to determine that the principle as well as life should be valued, but we don't know how those values are weighted. And since we don't know, let's use some arbitrary numbers just so we can see this concept in action. The moral dilemma we're going to be looking at this time is going to be asking whether or not it's okay to kill one random person to save 5 random people. So this is what our equation is going to look like. Whichever side of the equation is greater is going to be able to be how we determine what brings about the greater good. So let's fill in some arbitrary numbers and assume that the principle of not murdering is 5 times stronger than the value of a single human life, and see how that impacts our equation. In this first scenario, given our arbitrary numbers, not killing brings about the greater good. But now let's tweak it. Let's use the same dilemma, except this time, let's ask if it's okay to kill one person, one random person, to save 1,000 random people. Now in this scenario, given our numbers, killing brings about the greater good. Hopefully this shows that we don't need to actually solve moral dilemmas to be able to realize that both consequences and principles matter. It may be intuitively obvious that something should be valued, but it's not always intuitively obvious how those values should be weighted. When those values conflict, aka when we have a moral dilemma, it may be difficult or even impossible to determine what is moral. Now, both theists and atheists can try their hand at solving moral dilemmas, and there's no reason they can't come up with some of the same answers. That's why I think Thunderfoot and Ray Comfort's conversation would have been a lot more fruitful had they talked about what the standard of morality is and why we're obligated to follow it, rather than trying to answer specific moral dilemmas. It's a lot easier to recognize that certain means and ends should be valued than it is to account for why we ought to value certain means and ends. Anyway, I know I didn't actually provide any solutions to moral dilemmas here, but I think understanding the method to potentially derive the right answer is sometimes more important than the answer itself. I remember back in school, my teachers made me show my work on math problems because they were more concerned about me understanding math than getting the right answer on the test. And that's the same kind of approach I'm taking here. I'd really appreciate your feedback and corrective criticism on this video. This is a new idea I've been kicking around, and I'm still thinking about it. If you want this video to be seen or critiqued by more people, then be sure to click the like button, and as always, test everything, hold on to the good.